Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Today we're sharing our thoughts on Mother's Day in midlife. It's different than it used to be, it continues to change, and today we're going to discuss ways to make it even better. Let's get started. Listeners, today we're talking about Mother's Day. We've done several Mother's Day episodes over the years, but each one has focused on something a little different. Our favorite Mother's Day memories, funny things about our own mothers, celebrating motherhood. But as life keeps on changing, Mother's Day also keeps on changing all the time. And this year, we're going to focus on a reel that Julie found and sent out to us, and just some of the things the lady talks about in there. So, Julie, why don't you catch listeners up on what your reel was about?
The reel is from a lady that I follow. Her name is Kathy Cunningham 717. And she said that no one really prepares you for this part of being a parent. This is called ambiguous grief. It's grieving something that isn't fully gone, but it just isn't what it used to be. And that can make it really hard. And she said you kind of live in this tension of being really grateful that your kids are out of the house and doing what they're supposed to be doing. But, you're not the center of things anymore. They don't come to you for everything. They don't tell you everything. They don't maybe call as much. There's a distance there. A lot of times, that just kind of creates a tension. For me, it's more like an internal tension of, I should just be happy, that they're doing well. But then you kind of have the pity party. What about me?
Uh-huh.
Right. So that's what she was addressing, and ways to, counter that thinking.
Right. What were your thoughts on that, Mindy?
I was driving and I listened to it. I let the reel kind of go through itself probably about 3 times. And the one line that really got me was at the beginning. She says you kind of go from being the main person to being optional. And that word optional, I was like, oh, that one hurts. And I appreciate that she did the reel because a lot of people feel that way. As much as we try to raise our children to leave the home and be successful on their own, you aren't doing or functioning the same. Your role changes all through the years until one day it's just really quiet. And so what to do with the quiet? And I think that there's a lot of different ways you could fall. Maybe some traps you could fall in, or lies that you might tell yourself. Just so much came to my mind when I thought about the different things that you could do reacting just out of your sadness. So I think a lot of moms probably struggle with this is, maybe, hey, you've done a good job, and maybe that's why you're sad.
Yeah. Right after I saw this reel, I met this lady that was getting ready to go on a big trip, and I didn't know her very well. So we were just talking, and she said that she had 3 sons that were all, one was married and the other 2 were out of the house, and they actually lived in different states, all 3 of them. I was just sharing how I wanted to stay in contact with my family when I'm going on a trip. And she said, she said, if I'm gone, I'm going to be gone for 10 or 12 days. She said that might be the normal cycle of a time when I didn't talk to them. Like I might only talk to them every 2 weeks. And she said, I could totally go and come and they never even know it, but before I talk to them again. And I thought, wow, that's, I don't know. It just struck me as that's the relationship some people have. And she said, and they're very close, but they just don't talk every day. And she did say their sons. She said, it's really normal for a daughter to be close to her mother. It's really normal for a daughter to be a daddy's girl, but no son wants to be a mama's boy. So she said that just adds a whole nother issue. You know what I mean? Like I do think it's harder to stay closer to your sons. That was a good example of this can be normal and still good. She was, she was saying that her relationship was very good. She said, I'm just learning to let them decide. Instead of me always calling them and checking on them, I just let them decide kind of the rhythm of communication. She was very comfortable with it. And I thought that was good.
One of the things that I appreciated in the reel was that she did talk about that when we're not the center, and I think this is what we're saying, like, when we're not the center, we can tend to feel like we aren't as close as we used to be. I think we're equating closeness with, frequency of contact, and
Mhm.
she kind of encouraged us to make a simple shift. Instead of asking why we aren't as close as we used to be, maybe think to yourself, what does this season of connection look like now? And then take
Mhm.
one small step in that direction. Not pressure or guilt, just a simple, genuine reaching out. What does that child need, and what level of connection can we have, and how can we move in a positive direction?
Yeah, and
Mhm.
she said to, for that simple shift to say, "What can this look like now?" As opposed to asking either your child or yourself, "Why aren't we as close as we used to be?"
Mhm.
That's a hard question to answer because
Mhm.
it can sound like it's somebody's fault or there's something wrong,
Mhm.
Right.
and I've probably asked that question, at
Mhm.
Right.
some point. So yeah, it's more of what it looks like reasonably living with the relationship you do have and then how you can do it without pressure and guilt.
I appreciated that she said, grieve the loss. Basically feel the sadness. I think that's really important because while we're celebrating where our kids have gone or what they're doing that, makes them busy or that they're living their full lives, it does leave us with an emptiness, it leaves us with less conversations and time and scheduling activities and interactions. And while we're celebrating them, we're still grieving, that we do miss them. And so I think that being okay that they're awesome and also that we're sad. I really liked that she did say that, to name it, to feel it. I thought about, journaling, what to do with those feelings. Like they have to go somewhere. So instead of
Yeah,
putting
true.
that sadness on your child, I thought, well, how can we deal with the grief first? And then I also realized there's probably some traps that we could easily fall into if we don't deal with the grief correctly. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah. What were
Yeah.
some of those traps that you thought about?
So, one of the traps that I thought of would easily you could easily fall into is to believe a lie. And I think that there's probably a lot of lies moms can tell themselves. Off the top of your heads, can you think of things that you might tell yourself when you're missing your child?
Yeah, you could say they don't care anymore or they don't want to talk to me or like, assign some motive to it instead of
Mm.
thinking they're busy, they have a life. They
Right.
it's not about frequency. It's yes, that's a very
Mhm.
good point. We believe a lot of lies.
'Cause when you're hurt, I think it's real easy for your mind to try to find a reason, and sometimes
Mhm.
anger is easier than sadness. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed that.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, and she did say in there, if we are feeling grieved and maybe telling ourselves lies, that we'll tend to pull away. And
Right.
that can be a trap that someone would fall into, is kind of withdrawing.
Yeah, she
Right.
said you'll either cling too tightly and over text and over communicate and question,
Mhm.
or you'll slowly pull away. And this part really resonated. She said to protect your heart.
Mhm.
And I thought that at first I thought, how is that protection? But I think when you feel distance between anybody, friends, parents, children, whoever, it is hurtful. It can be hurtful. And so it's almost like if you pull away, you feel like the distance is because of something you've done, not them. So that feels less hurtful. It's like you're in control of the distance. Um,
Right.
and I thought that makes sense.
I know I was thinking it'd be easier to put more pressure on your child in a way that is not healthy. And I don't think we need to apologize for loving our children. I don't think we need to apologize for our presence. So I want to make sure that's heard loud and clear because
Hmm.
they need our love. I'm not going to stop loving my child. However, the way that I show that love probably needs to shift and change along with, this role, this behavior that's changing. But at the same time, I don't want there to be like pressure that I'm expecting certain things of my child, and I put that on them out of like guilting them or shaming them. I think it's too easy to to
Mhm.
put maybe unrealistic expectations on them because we do feel sadness over, not seeing them as much or not being able to get together as much or talking to them as much. And so that was just one of the things I thought either pulling away or guilt and shame. Like those are kind of like two sides of a fence that we're trying to straddle that would be too
Mhm.
easy to fall into one way or the other.
Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure.
I think the transition statement for my traps that I thought about is to not question everything. Like, the common saying, "Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater."
Mhm.
Like, your role has changed, but not everything has changed.
Mhm.
And so, even though you're not really sure where you stand, try to believe the best about your child. And so I
Mhm.
actually went to a verse on this one. I went to 1 Corinthians 13. I went to the love chapter.
Mhm.
And because I thought it was really wise to think about how best to love our child the way God tells us to love other people. They've become adults now, they're fully functioning. How can we love them as adults? And the first word is patient. And I was
Yeah,
like,
it's true.
I mean, love is patient. It's kind. We don't keep a record of wrongs. We're not easily angered. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. And I thought, what better relationship to put these words, this character on than our with our adult children?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's really good. I think, speaking into their lives and seeing, letting them know what you appreciate about them and what you see that they're doing well and good, and, those are also good ways to build relationships. And then the things that you're maybe disappointed or hurt in, like, always remember what Julie Gordon said, "Put it up on the shelf."
Mhm.
I think about that shelf a lot, like, "Oops, going up
Mhm.
on the shelf."
Mhm.
I don't mean like a hurt, like like they said something and you need to talk it out, but just
Mhm.
Right.
this general feeling of things aren't like they used to be.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The battlefield of our own minds. And so, Julie, you just mentioned this, like the things that go on in your own mind sometimes are harder than the actual relationship itself with your child. And so, training our minds, I immediately thought of Philippians 4:8. And so the questions that you would go through and asking yourself, in trying to understand your new role with your child is, is what you're thinking, is it true? Is it noble? Is it right? Is it pure? Is it lovely? Is it admirable? Is it excellent? And is it praiseworthy? And again, there's no better wisdom for us in trying to train our minds before we react to something that may not be true, before we act out of hurt, so that we can act out of pure love for our child. Because that's where it starts pure, but it could just so easily go sideways. And so
Mhm.
a lot of times, just that very first question knocks out so many things. Is it true? You're like, "Oh, well, I'm not sure," you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, and I think we talked about this maybe the week before on that God is infinite, all-knowing, and that we are not,
Yes.
and that, when I say I know what they meant by that, or I don't because I don't know them, like assuming that you understand motives, I get into trouble with that, like if it's been a while since I've communicated with one of my kids, I can assign motives like that aren't true.
Right.
So a little more frequent does help me not to get into that trap of assuming something's wrong or assuming something's not right with the relationship, versus busyness.
Mhm.
So maybe we can transition and talk about some positive steps we can do as we do shift our relationships with our adult children. One of the first things that I thought of was if you're really missing them, try to get something on the calendar. And that could just be as simple as, "Hey, when can we chat?" Or, "Hey, can we FaceTime on Friday?" Or something like that. Um, clearly, like, if you have a trip coming up or if you can plan a trip or a time to get together, that's awesome too. It's just, a lot of different levels of expectations here, but it gives you something to look forward to and it sets your mind at ease. I'm going to talk to them then. So
Mhm.
that can be exciting and something to look forward to.
Mhm.
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 Something else is, Marie, you mentioned this, just communication's easy. So you can send just a little text, a picture, a funny meme, like no pressure. So anytime you can like lower expectations on them and for yourself, make yourself easy, okay? Like,
Mhm.
make yourself the low-hanging fruit, all right? I know we have done so much in service and love, to raise these children, so you understand what I'm saying, but we just you want them to respond, you want them to laugh, you want them to feel your love, so if you can do something like that, I think that that can be a fun way to have little touches.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think laughter is probably the best thing that works for our family on the group chat is somebody post a funny picture or a quote or something that made them think about another person. And then that will usually generate some other conversation.
Right.
That's always a good kickoff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
One of the funny things I put, just because I have a couple boys in college, is, limit questions. So I didn't wanna tell us what to do. This is for me.
Mhm.
If I reach out to them and they respond, I could get very excited and think, "Oh, I've got their attention. I'm gonna blast them with all of my questions." Don't do it.
Yeah, I think that's the no pressure part.
Don't fall for that trap.
Mhm.
But what do you guys do? Because we do have a million questions. Like, we wanna know how they're doing. Are you eating good? Are you sleeping good? I mean, things like this, like these mom questions. So how do you handle that?
I think it's harder with boys because they don't volunteer much of that information, but I have recently read that you don't want your phone calls to turn into, like, mom's interviewing me every week. So
Right.
I walk a fine line because if I don't ask questions with one of mine, well, the conversation's gonna be about 90 seconds, but yet the questions I ask, he might think, "Why does she ask me that every week?" So, I don't have a great tip for listeners except to say I am in the same boat with
Yeah.
some of those conversations.
Yes.
Yeah. I think you just have to know your kids and like with one of mine that has a health issue, that could be my only thing I talk about.
Oh,
That's what I
right.
want to talk about every time.
Mm,
Yes.
And I've learned to not do that. And then sometimes I even have to explain, I really do care how you're feeling, but I don't want to ask you that all the time. I have to even
Yes.
explain why I'm not asking because I don't want him to feel bad.
mhm,
Yes.
Because I might ask the other one that and it just it's received differently.
mhm,
Right.
mhm,
Um so yeah, just having to know what they need to hear and what they don't need to hear.
Mhm.
mhm,
Yeah.
I know one thing that I hear often from different children is I can tell it really bothers them if they think that I'm worried about them.
mm,
And one of the very best things that I can do is say the words, "I'm not worried about you. I know you're gonna
Mhm.
do great."
mhm,
And so hoping that our kids and also saying like we're there for them, but also the words that we allow to come out of our mouths being of encouragement or that we believe the best about them and
Mhm.
that they can do it and we're not worried. And so there's something about that mom worry that like it puts a lot of like baggage on them.
mm,
And
mhm,
so I know that they may not tell me things because they're like, "Oh, I don't want you to worry." I'm like,
mhm, mhm. Or
Yeah.
maybe it will stress them out if you're worried and then you're asking them.
yes. Yes. So my last thing was pray for them and pray for yourself to believe the best about them and not worry about them
Yeah.
because that has to go somewhere. It's real. It's
Mhm,
happening. And so with the kids, instead of giving them our worry or giving them sharing our fear, let's
mhm,
share our faith. And
mhm,
Good
so
word.
I journal the fear and I share the faith and I pray for them because it has to go somewhere. And this is where I come back to loving them biblically and training my mind biblically so that I can try to put the fear and the worry at Jesus' feet and give them the blessing of the love and the freedom that I want them to be able to live in.
All right, Mindy, you need a new sign in your house.
What's that?
It needs to say, "Journal the fear, share the faith." Perfect sign. You need that in your
Ooh,
kitchen.
maybe I could make a sweatshirt.
Yeah. I like catchy phrases so I can remember them. That's excellent. I love that.
Wow.
Because I
Wow.
also think sometimes when they share something with you, my fear can almost become greater than theirs.
Mhm.
You know, they shared it out of, "Man, what should I do?" Or blah, blah, and it
Mhm.
turns into something more ominous for me,
Mhm. Mhm.
Turns
and
into
that's
something
that's
that
not helpful.
it keeps us up at night, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
those are the things I wake up at 3:30 in the morning and I'm, like, praying through what my child told me about. Like
Yeah, but sharing that fear with them can make their anxiety, they might become worried about something they weren't even that worried about?
Mhm. All right. Well, this was a great reminder, and it may be something that some moms need to hear in relation to Mother's Day. I also found an article that I thought would be interesting to kind of go over. It is our stage of life. It says what to do when you're caught in the middle on Mother's Day. Don't lose out just because you're in the sandwich generation. And the sandwich generation is generally thought of like parents between 35 and 54 who are caring for their aging parents while also caring for their own children. And it says that moms of all ages may feel ignored as they take care of Mother's Day celebrations for their children, grandchildren, parents, and other relatives. So I thought that this was interesting. I have my own mother, and now I have a daughter and daughter in law that are mothers. And so I kind of am in the middle. And we've always celebrated not always, but most of the time celebrated Mother's Day kind of corporately, like Steve's mom and my mom and myself. And, we all get together. But there have been years where we haven't done that. Like maybe people have been traveling or we've wanted to do something special or we've been away. And I have been thinking about this for the last few years because my daughter has been a mom for a few years. And now my daughter in law, this will be her first Mother's Day. And I want to be cognizant going forward that it's also their Mother's Day. And so they may want to do something completely different on Mother's Day. They may not want big group gatherings. And do you get your feelings hurt over that? Or do you put pressure on your kids to attend a big Mother's Day? Maybe they want
Mm.
their husband to take the children out for the day and they want to read a book and take a bath. Like that's their idea of Mother's Day. Like, I don't know. I guess we just need to always be remembering that even the way that we look at Mother's Day changes over the years, depending on how many
Mm.
generations you have to be considering.
Wow. Yeah, I haven't even thought of that, Marie, because I'm just not there
Mhm.
yet. And I can't imagine, especially with all of you being able to live in somewhat close proximity to one another, that you have opportunity. I know my family is much further apart, so we actually haven't necessarily dealt with that. And so we've spent so many Mother's Days apart. I know I struggle with how to bless my mom and mother in law because I'm in Georgia and one's in Missouri and one's in Kansas.
Mhm. Mhm.
And there aren't grandchildren yet to share that with, but kind of we're in the long distance celebrating over
Right.
here.
Right.
Yeah, us too. That hasn't really ever affected us because I've been with my mom, and my
Yeah.
boys don't have children, and then my daughter I mean, I remember one year she surprised me for Mother's Day and came, and, was here not too many years ago for Mother's Day, and that was really special, but that's not something that is routine?
Mhm.
Right. Right.
Well, I was thinking about like creative ways in our family that I probably need to verbalize, or maybe they'll just listen to this podcast and hear it. But like my son does almost all the cooking in his family. And then my son in law does almost all the cooking in his family. And so it seems like maybe a direction that our families could go is like put the men in charge. My husband, Abigail's husband, Maddie's husband, like put the guys in charge. Like if you don't cook, then buy the food. If or think of the entertainment or whatever, like maybe put more of the onus on the men. And I think
Mhm.
at least the men in my family would actually think that is fun. So you can kind of look at maybe what some of the talents are of the men and kind of tap into those. In the article, it said that somebody has they celebrate their mom on Saturday, and then on the Sunday, their husband takes all the kids out and she just has a true Mother's Day to herself. You have to kind of think about,
Wow.
what do I enjoy on Mother's Day? I always appreciated The Middle, that TV show, where she
Yeah.
would do, it was the day after Mother's Day was Mother's Day for moms. I've adopted that attitude on Christmas. The day after Christmas is Christmas Day for moms. And sometimes after a holiday, it'd be okay, this is that holiday for moms. And it's usually a reset and a doing nothing and a relaxation. But, if you don't get to do it on the actual day, maybe another time of the weekend. Also, it said, speak up, speak out, speak up about what your needs are. I know at Easter, we had celebrated Steve's birthday pretty big a couple days before Easter. And I just kind of said to my kids, hey, who's interested in gathering again 2 days later for a big Easter meal? And we had celebrated with my mom the week before. I said, if nobody's super interested in that, maybe we could do something non-traditional. It's okay to do non-traditional things. So my son made us crepes and we went for a walk at a local park, and that was our Easter.
Wow.
And it was very relaxing and we still got together and it was nice. So maybe think of some non-traditional things to do for Mother's Day. But I just think that in midlife, you have to, it's not going to be breakfast in bed, a funny card, and everybody celebrates you and you only the entire day. There's a lot of people to celebrate. And so you have to think of different ways to incorporate everybody having a good time.
I think we're all thankful for no breakfast in bed, though, right?
Yes, please don't do that.
At any age, I do not want breakfast in bed.
Please. Bryce jokes because he knows that's the last thing I would want. So he jokes, "Ooh, we're going to give you breakfast in bed." You're trying to torture me.
Yeah.
And so I do like that, Marie, though. I think that article is really wise to consider all the generations and their perspectives on Mother's Day. And it's okay that you have desires. I think they're good. It stems from a good place. You long to be with your children. And so we don't have to deny that about ourselves while also being flexible with, you're not the only mom.
Right. Yeah, because so many of the comments were from young moms saying, nobody really celebrates me. I'm busy making a meal to celebrate my mom and my grandmother. And
Right.
it's not trickling down to them. And I think we need to remember that they also need to be celebrated and have a break. And every mom at every age wants to feel special on that day. So what would make everybody feel special?
Right. I know what would make me feel special is if it were not in the month of May this year. With all the other things happening. And then Bryce mentioned Mother's Day. And I was like, Mother's Day? When is that?
It is true.
It is bad
it's
timing.
a busy time of year.
Oh, buddy. Yes.
And it's usually also my birthday weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, yes. We've got birthdays and anniversaries and then just the big thing is our senior is graduating. So along with all the anniversaries and birthdays and everything, it's the senior year, end of the year things happening. So I guess at least next year, we won't have all those end of the year things going on.
Right. Yeah. That too is a season, it won't be forever. Even though it feels like right now when you've raised 4 kids, it seems like every May is just an absolute busy time.
It does still feel that way.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, we hope, listeners, that we have encouraged you today. We hope you are thinking about Mother's Day and are excited about it. We wish all of our listeners a happy Mother's Day. Come and tell us your thoughts on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast, or you can email us at midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com. But before we go, we want to do I'm a Fan. All right, Mindy, what are you a fan of this week?
Well, I'm a fan of helping out a friend or serving or ministering in some form or fashion to the younger generation. And I say this especially with this particular podcast because this has brought me a lot of joy. While sometimes I am missing my own children, I feel like I have so much to give still. And so I have a friend that has needed my help just a couple of times with her younger daughter. And I just can't tell you how much joy it brings me if she says, "Hey, can you help?" I'm like, "Yes, I get some
Mm.
girl time." And this girl
Mhm.
is 13 and I don't get a lot of girl time. I miss my Abby. She's 26 though, and she's adulting. And so
Mhm.
this is one way that it really does help me feed in and give love and serve. And it brings so much joy to my life to be able to serve and get to know the younger generation.
I like that, Mindy. I know that you're a big blessing to her.
I hope so.
I'm sure of it.
Oh, I'm sure you are.
Yeah, yeah. All right, Julie, what are you a fan of this week?
I'm a fan of a book that I am reading probably for the fourth time over many, many years, but it's called A Voice in the Wind by Francine Rivers. And I'm actually listening to it on audio, which,
Mhm.
by the way, if you have Spotify that you pay for, audios are all free. I love it. Every book I've ever looked for is on there.
Really?
So
Really?
no need to join Audible. You just listen to it there.
Thank
Interesting.
you.
Um, so the reason I'm listening to this is I'm about to leave on a trip to Rome, actually the whole Mediterranean on a kind of a New Testament world cruise. And this book just always takes me back to that part of the world.
Mhm.
In fact, the cover is the main character standing in front of the Colosseum, which I should be at on Thursday.
Okay.
so so I just I know Marie, you've read the book. Have you read that
Mhm.
book, Mindy?
Yes,
Yeah.
several
I mean,
times. Yeah,
it's just
I
one of those
love
you
it.
wanna reread every 10 or so years.
Mhm.
So good. So that's what I'm reading right now, and it's a long book, so I've got 20 hours to listen to it on my flight.
Well, that's so interesting, Julie, because last year I actually listened to it, even though I'd read it years ago before they probably
Uh-huh.
even had the audiobook. But I always find that if I like a book, if it's been several years, listening to it is a new experience.
Yeah, yeah.
I was gonna say that I haven't listened to that book before, so I
I
may
haven't
do
either.
that.
I've always
Yeah.
read it. So,
Wow, okay.
it's so good. It's a life-changing book. It really is.
Yeah, it is really good. So,
It
okay,
is.
I'll put a link to that in our show notes. All right, this week I am a fan of a tank top, a workout tank top that I wear for pickleball, but you could wear it for anything. So last year I got some tank tops at Old Navy. They were kind of on the shorter side. They weren't like crop tops, but they were just maybe hit your waist. And I really loved them. Honestly, though, when I looked at my choices this year, Old Navy, Target, like my usual haunts, I don't want to
Yeah.
spend, a ton of money on these tank tops. They all were kind of longer, and that wasn't what I was looking for. And then I found these on Amazon. And also, I kind of like them to be high up to my neck, so I have to put less sunscreen on. These are called G4 Free Lyocell Razorback Women Workout Tank Tops. And I will put a link in the show notes. I just ordered one just to try it, and I liked it. And so, knowing who I am, I'm sure I will order a few more colors, and then I will wear the same thing
A
over and
few.
over again. But I mean, they're $20, so they're not breaking the bank. You can get them in a day. And I think that they were just the kind of thing that I was looking for. So check them out. They may be just the kind of thing that you're looking for.
Thank you. I've just
Nice,
been
yeah.
looking for some tank tops for the summer.
Okay, great.
Well, I think I
Yeah.
messaged Mindy last summer and said, "Where do you get all
Yes.
your tank tops?" Because I like the high
Yes.
neck tank tops.
Yeah.
All right, ladies, I enjoyed this discussion. Happy Mother's Day to you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Happy
happy
Mother's
Mother's
Day.
Day.
We'll talk with you next week.
All
Sounds
right.
great.
Bye.
We're so happy you joined us today. You can find the show notes for this episode at midlifematterspodcast.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.